The last time the sun vanished, we lost 6 people. This time, it's only me left to follow the rules. But I don't remember breaking any of them. The sun disappeared 3 hours ago, though I swear it's still out there somewhere, hiding behind the mountains, watching me. They say the last light never lies, but I think it does. The last time it vanished, 6 people didn't make it through the dark. This year it's just me, and maybe you, if you're still watching. I live in a village that most maps ignore. Alaska calls it forgotten, though I think it's the kind of place the sun forgot too. 6 cabins huddle along the frozen river, smoke curling lazily from chimneys that might as well be fingers pointing at the sky. We call it home. The rest of the world calls it empty. Before the blackout begins, there's a stillness I can't describe. It's not quiet, it's metallic. The wind makes a whining sound, like ice grinding over stone, and everything seems sharper. Shadows don't move, they wait. I can see the faint auroras flicker above, veins of green and violet pulsing across the sky, and they make me feel like I'm being watched. Maybe I am. I'm not supposed to tell anyone about the rules. Or maybe I'm not supposed to admit I follow them. They're old, older than the cabins, older than the snow, but they've kept people alive for generations. My ancestors believed the dark season was alive, that it watched us, judged us. They left us instructions. Never whistle after midnight. Never open the door if someone knocks twice. Never look at a reflection during the blackout. Simple rules. That's what I tell myself. Rules keep people alive. But I've been alive for 27 winters, and I've broken every one of them. Maybe that's why the last beam of sunlight feels like it's dying faster this year. Mara used to sit in her cabin across the frozen river, waving at me every morning like the world was normal, like we were normal. She disappeared last winter. Gone. And I keep saying disappeared because it sounds harmless, like she tripped on the ice or wandered too far into the woods. But you wouldn't understand. Not yet. I shouldn't tell you. Some things are better left unsaid. Yet here I am, talking. People ask why we follow the rules. Tradition, superstition, fear. They all sound like excuses. But it's true. If you ignore them, the darkness finds you. I've seen what happens when someone laughs at them or gets careless. And Mara, maybe she didn't believe, maybe she laughed. I keep my camera close, mostly as a distraction. I tell myself it's so I can record, document, keep the memory of the village safe. But truthfully, sometimes it's the only thing keeping me sane. I talk to you like you're a friend, but I'm not sure I can even be honest with myself anymore. The cold makes my fingers stiff, and the river is half frozen, cracking under its own weight like fragile glass. Each sound echoes like a warning. The cabins stand silent, black windows reflecting the fading light. Smoke from chimneys drifts lazily, but the smell of burning wood does nothing to make it feel safe. I keep walking, camera shaky, capturing the emptiness. I stop at Mara's cabin. The door is still slightly ajar, like she just stepped outside. I know better than to go in, but part of me wants to see, to remember. The wind carries a sound I almost don't recognize. The faint scraping of something on the ice. It could be a fox, a branch, or nothing at all, but it makes me flinch. I adjust the lens. The auroras are brighter now, streaking the sky like veins, and the world seems thinner, almost fragile, as if the darkness is pressing in from all sides. My breath hangs in the air, frozen into tiny clouds that drift in front of the lens. I sit on the edge of the riverbank and pull my coat tighter. The rules feel heavier tonight, like they're pressing into my chest. I recite them silently, over and over like a mantra. Never whistle, never open the door if it knocks twice, never look at a reflection. My throat tightens on the last one. Reflections aren't mirrors, they're lies. I've learned that the hard way. There's a faint smell of smoke on the wind, but it's not from a chimney. My stomach knots. I've been alone for hours. and yet it smells like someone's cooking in a cabin that shouldn't have anyone in it. I tell myself it's my imagination. I tell myself 1,000 things to stay calm. The rules are supposed to keep the darkness out, but I feel it crawling along the edges of my vision, waiting for a mistake, a slip, a laugh too loud. The last shard of sunlight touches the tips of the mountains, and I feel it vanish from the world. The river goes black, and the cabins disappear behind shadows. I hold my camera tighter, whispering into it like a prayer. It started, I say. My voice trembles, but I speak the words anyway. They echo across the ice, swallowed immediately by the dark. I stand, breathing hard, listening to the silence that stretches longer than any shadow should. Tonight the darkness has a weight, and I feel it pressing closer. I take a step back from the river, back toward the village. The rules are all I have, and yet I know, deep down, that this year they might not be enough. Somewhere in the wind, I think I hear a voice. Or maybe it's the ice cracking under the snow. Maybe it's Mara. Maybe it's nothing. I don't know yet. I don't want to know yet. The knock started exactly when the last light disappeared. 2 soft thuds on the cabin door, slow at first, then repeated, steady, almost polite. I froze the camera in my hands, staring at the door like it might explain itself if I looked hard enough. 2 knocks, like the warnings in the rules. Never open the door if someone knocks twice. I told myself it was the wind. I swear I did. The wind can whistle through the cracks in the cabin, rattle the boards. But wind doesn't stop when you listen for it. It doesn't imitate voices. And the knocks, they never stopped. They repeated, in pairs. Always in pairs. I raised the camera to my face, trying to keep my breathing steady. I whispered to the lens, it's probably just the ice settling, or something mundane. I didn't believe a word of it. And the longer I stared, the more the air seemed to thicken. Every gust of wind sounded like a sigh. Every shadow in the corner of the room stretched toward me like fingers. Then I heard it. A soft, familiar voice. It came from the other side of the door, quiet, trembling. Eli, let me in. I dropped the camera for a moment, my fingers frozen in the cold. My chest tightened. Mara's voice. But she's gone. She's been gone for months. I told myself it couldn't be her. My own mind is clever that way. It twists memories, reshapes guilt into lies, and now it was using her voice as a trap. I picked the camera back up, my hands shaking, and tried to focus. I opened my notebook, flipping to the section where I've written every rule for the dark season. My handwriting looked like it was vibrating in the lantern light. Most of the rules were intact. Whistle after midnight. Don't. Open the door if someone knocks twice. Don't. But rule number 4 caught my eye. Never answer a voice you know. The words were scratched over in several places, jagged and desperate, like I'd tried to erase them. I couldn't remember scratching them. Or did I? My memory felt like melted ice sloshing around, refusing to take shape. I whispered to the camera. I didn't touch this, I swear. I can't have. The knocks continued. And now the voice changed. It was Mara, but not exactly. The tone was off, higher, desperate, and yet somehow intimate. It knew me. It knew things no one else could. It called my name softly. Please. Eli. Just let me in. I backed away from the door, slipping on the frozen floor. My camera swung wildly, capturing shadows that weren't there a second ago, or maybe had always been. I spoke to the lens, not to anyone else. You don't understand. She's not real. She can't be real. It's the wind. It's the ice. The radio crackled. I jumped, nearly dropping it, and scrambled to grab the handset. Caleb's voice came through, tense and sharp. Eli!
Stay inside!
Don't open the door. Do you hear me? I could hear the panic in his voice, a brother's panic, and it cut through the fog in my head for a second. But it didn't help. It didn't stop the knocks, the voice, the way the cabin felt smaller, like the darkness was pressing in. Caleb's voice was harsh, accusing. There was blame there, but I can't say I didn't deserve it. I'm fine, Caleb, I whispered, my voice breaking. I can handle this. The door shook with another set of knocks. 2 knocks, 2 knocks, and then Mara's voice, louder this time, almost crying. Please, Eli, please. I swallowed hard. My throat burned. I looked into the camera, speaking faster than I should. I wouldn't. God, I can't. Time lost meaning. The knocks became rhythmic, hypnotic, and my own heartbeat sounded too loud. I contradicted myself constantly, mumbling apologies to no one, to the camera, to Mara, to the darkness itself. I'm sorry. I won't, I swear. For a second, the camera caught a shadow in the corner of the room, moving independently of anything else. Or maybe it was me. I don't remember setting the camera down. I don't remember moving. My hands are shaking as I film now, and yet I keep speaking, rationalizing. It's just my imagination. Just the cold. Just the rules. They're fine. I'm fine. But the rules weren't enough. I could feel it now. Creeping into the corners, pressing against my senses. The voice on the other side wasn't just Mara. It was her, and it wasn't. Something imitating her. Something patient. Something that knew the exact notes to hit in my guilt, in my fear, and then finally, I made the decision. I shouldn't have. Every rational thought screamed no, but the sobbing outside the door, quiet and real enough to pierce my mind, broke me. Just a moment, I whispered, barely audible, my hand trembling as it reached for the handle. The screen goes black when the door opens. I don't know what happens next. Not yet. The camera falls. The knocks, they stop. Or maybe they never did. Maybe they're just waiting. Door opens after hearing Mara's sobs. Screen cuts to black, perfectly setting up chapter 3. The thing wearing her face, where the horror escalates and Eli's unreliable narration deepens. When the door swung open, I expected Mara. I expected some miracle, some explanation for the sobbing I heard. What I saw instead, I can't even describe. The shadow in the doorway wasn't Mara, though it wore her face, her voice, her scent. But there was something wrong. Wrong in the way it moved, wrong in the emptiness behind its eyes. My stomach turned, and I dropped the camera again, fumbling to pick it back up. I try to convince myself I'm imagining it, that my mind, frayed and cold and sleepless, is playing tricks. But it spoke, perfectly mimicking her soft, pleading voice. Eli, don't be afraid. It's just me. I couldn't move. I wanted to run, wanted to slam the door and hide under the floorboards, but my legs refused. I noticed the footprints leading inside. They were hers. Too small, delicate, and yet my gut screamed they weren't hers. No human could make that pattern. The prints twisted strangely, almost like they shifted with the light, fading in and out of reality. The cabin felt smaller now, as if the walls were leaning closer, listening. The fire in the hearth flickered unnaturally, shadows dancing like puppets on the walls. I told myself, it's just the shadows, just the flicker, just me. But my voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. I picked up the camera, holding it at arm's length, trying to document what I was seeing for you. For someone, for anyone who might believe me. It's not Mara, I whispered to the lens, over and over, as if repeating it enough times could make it true. But then it laughed. Her laugh, soft, intimate, almost warm. I felt my chest tighten. And when it repeated a story, something only Mara and I shared years ago, I couldn't deny it. The thing outside knew things it shouldn't. I backed into the corner. This isn't real. You can't exist, I muttered, panic rising. The camera shook in my hands, my own reflection in the lens. No, not mine. Her eyes stared back at me. Not Mara, but her. The radio crackled again. Caleb. His voice. Closer now. Urgent. Eli, stop filming! You don't know what it is. Don't engage. Stay inside. I swallowed, trembling. I wanted to answer, to explain, but my voice caught in my throat. I could feel guilt and fear twisting inside me, gnawing. Caleb always warned me, always said I pushed too far, did too much alone, but he didn't understand. Nobody understands. Mara's death, my fault, had turned this village into a cage, and now this thing was proof that some things never die. Some things wait. I moved cautiously to the door. The thing didn't advance. It didn't need to. It lingered, patient, letting the cold wind snake through the cabin, letting the aurora bleed green and violet across the snow outside. I dared not step outside, but every instinct screamed at me to do something. Anything! I whispered, shaking, to the camera. If you're watching this, she's not Mara. She can't be. She's... My words broke off. The thing repeated them in her voice. My voice. A perfect warped mimicry. I wanted to scream, but the sound caught in my chest. I wanted to run, but my legs were frozen, rooted by fear. The cabin itself seemed to pulse, walls contracting and expanding like lungs. I remembered what old Harlow told me, just before she died last year. She said, "The dark ones take the shape of who you've lost, who you've loved, and what you've killed. Speak their name, and they find you." I hadn't spoken her name, not aloud, but in my head, every thought, every memory whispered it, twisted it, cursed me with it, and now it had come for me. Not Mara, something wearing her face, something patient, something that knew my guilt better than I ever could. I stumbled backward. The camera caught a reflection, the first time I dared to look in a mirror. My face stared back, and for a moment, I thought it moved independently, grinning at me. The thing outside mouthed my own name, perfectly timed with my heartbeat. And then, just for a second, I wondered, had it been here the entire time? Watching, waiting, living in the shadows of the cabin, in the space between reality and memory. I started talking to the camera like a confessional. I didn't know who I was speaking to. Myself, you, the darkness. I can't tell if this is real. Maybe I've gone mad. Maybe Mara's gone and then I froze. A sound behind me. Not the wind, not the ice. Footsteps. Light, deliberate, echoing through the cabin. I spun the camera, empty, but when I looked back at the doorway, she, or it, was gone. No footprints inside, no shadow, just the cold empty air, waiting. I whispered into the lens, voice trembling. It's wearing her face, but it's not her. It's not Mara. I know it. I know it. I don't let it out. And then the radio fell silent. No crackle, no voice, nothing. Caleb. Gone. The village. Empty. The auroras pulsed like veins again, green and violet bleeding into the night. And I knew something worse than the darkness was here. Something patient, something that could wait for me to make a mistake. Something that had already learned my every fear, my every memory. I whispered to the camera again, shaking, barely able to speak. If I don't make it, if you're seeing this, whatever is out there, it wears the face of the ones you love most, and it knows everything. I backed away, camera in hand, and the screen caught the corner of the doorway. Something flickered there. The air seemed to thrum with anticipation. I knew I couldn't stay, and I knew I couldn't leave. The thing was patient, and now it was watching me, Eli realizes the horror is a shape-shifting entity mimicking his loved ones. Caleb is gone, village is empty, and Eli's paranoia and guilt spiral. This sets up chapter 4, The Rule I Broke, where he confronts the truth behind Mara's death and the full horror of the Dark Ones. I shouldn't be filming this. I know that. But if I don't, no one will know. No one will believe. And if you're watching, maybe you'll understand. Maybe you'll see what I didn't want to admit. I broke the rules. All of them. Every single one. Not just the rules of the dark season, the ones I recited in my notebook like a prayer. No, I broke the real rule. The one they don't write down. The one that marks you. Mara. Mara didn't disappear by accident. I caused it. My hand, my anger, my guilt. That night, God, I can't even say it right. But the thing wearing her face knows. It knows everything. I sit on the frozen floor of my cabin, camera in hand, shaking so hard I can barely speak. The wind outside is quieter tonight. Too quiet. The auroras pulse overhead like veins. The colors sick and unnatural. The shadows in the cabin stretch toward me, waiting, patient. They don't need to move. They just are. I see Mara, or it, in every corner. Every flicker of light, every reflection I try not to look at. Old Harlow was right. The Dark Ones, they take the shape of those you've lost, those you've loved, and those you've destroyed. Mara, she checks all three. And me? I spoke her name aloud so many times, in memories, in whispers to myself, in lies to Caleb, in lies to you. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was keeping the rules. But the rule I broke, the one that matters, is that you cannot cheat the darkness. You cannot pretend it isn't there. You cannot hide. I look at the notebook again. Rule More 4, scratched over so many times it's almost illegible. Never answer a voice you know. I answered it. I always answered it. Mara's voice, Caleb's voice, the wind. I answered all of it. And now they're here. Or it's here. Or I'm here. I don't know anymore. I can hear whispers through the cabin walls. Not the wind, not the ice. Voices. Familiar, intimate, twisting my memories. Eli, Eli, it's okay. Let me in. I tell them to stop. I plead. I beg. I laugh nervously to the camera. I apologize. I contradict myself. I speak to Mara, to Caleb, to the darkness, to you. It's not my fault. No, it is. My voice breaks. I remember the night. The fight. Mara laughed at me. I swear she did, and I pushed her. Just once, she fell. The ice was thin. The river. I couldn't save her. And in that moment, I decided to make the rules, not to protect us. To protect myself. I told myself if I made rules, if I followed them, maybe the darkness wouldn't notice me. Maybe it wouldn't take me next. But the darkness doesn't care about your rules. It doesn't care about guilt or fear or clever tricks. It only waits. And now it's here. Mara's face, Caleb's voice, shadows that move when no one is there, reflections that lie. It's patient, it's infinite, and it's hungry. I rise from the floor, camera trembling in my hands. I can hear footsteps behind me, light steps, deliberate. I spin around, nothing, but when I look at the doorway, I see the shape, faint and flickering. Mara, my memory, my guilt. And I realize it's not just mimicking her. It's me too. My voice, my expressions, my confessions. Every fear I've had, every mistake, every whispered apology, it has learned me. I speak to the camera. I speak fast, erratically. If you're watching this, don't answer them. Don't speak their name. Don't try to rationalize it. I pause. My own voice stops me. The thing outside is repeating it perfectly. My words, my panic, my confessions played back to me in the tones of those I've lost. I hear the ice cracking outside. Not the river, Somewhere else, somewhere close. It moves differently than wind. It moves with intent. I back away toward the fireplace, clutching the camera like a shield. I tell myself the rules were never meant to protect me from myself. The rules were meant to keep me honest. And I failed. I think about Caleb, about Mara, about the village. Everyone who trusted me. I betrayed them, not only by surviving when I shouldn't, but by pretending the darkness was nothing more than superstition, by pretending the rules were enough, by pretending I could cheat guilt. I hear her voice again. Mara, or the thing wearing her face. Soft, patient. Eli, tell them the truth. The words pierce through my chest. I can't lie anymore. Not to you, not to the camera. Not to myself. The truth is worse than the darkness, worse than the cold, worse than isolation. The truth is that the rules were never enough. The darkness was never blind, and I created the path for it to find me. I speak now in whispers, almost prayer. The sun didn't disappear. I just stopped seeing it. I didn't stop it. I stopped noticing life outside my fear. I caused Mara's death. I caused it. My voice breaks. Tears freeze on my cheeks. I look at the camera one last time. Outside, the auroras flare violently, light stabbing through the snow like blades. I hear footsteps, whispering, breathing, laughing softly. Shapes in the shadows move independently of the wind. And I know whatever waits for me is patient. It doesn't need to hurry. It only needs to watch. And I only need to make a single mistake. I whisper to the lens one final time. If you're seeing this, I'm already too late. The rule I broke, it's too late for me. And if you follow the darkness, it will wear the face of the ones you love, and it will never stop. I can hear the knocking starting again. 2 knocks, and now I know I can't stop it. I won't survive this season, but at least you'll see the truth. Eli fully admits his guilt and unreliability. The darkness is unstoppable and personalized. Mara's death and the rule he broke bring the story to its psychological climax, setting the stage for the haunting finale and final reflection. Story number 2. If I ever start talking nonsense halfway through this video, don't believe me. I don't even believe myself anymore. They said my shift ended last week, but the clock at the site, it's still running, and so am I. I need to get this out while I still can, before the memory, whatever it is, slips away completely. I was hired to guard a tunnel construction site last month, or was it last year? Time doesn't make sense anymore, and maybe it never did. The posting was vague. Night security needed. Rural location. No contact during shifts. Rules will be provided. I didn't ask questions. I never do. That's my first mistake. I arrived late afternoon, my car barely making the hairpin turns up the mountain. The sight was already strange the moment I saw it. Towering machinery lay half buried in dust, the skeletal framework of the tunnel mouth yawning like a blackened mouth in the cliffside. No office building, no supervisor waving me over. Just a metal gate and a small folding table with a clipboard. On the clipboard, 12 handwritten rules, numbered neatly, each one stranger than the last. Rule 1. Never approach the red light after 3:33 a.m. Blum. 2. Do not respond to someone knocking from inside the tunnel. Rule 3. Do not acknowledge shadows that move on their own, and so on. All 12. I stared at them for a while, laughing to myself like some idiot. Red light, shadows, knockings from a sealed tunnel. I thought it was a prank, or maybe the previous guard had written them. That's the story I told myself on the drive up. I needed this job. Rent was late, food was scarce, and I had bills, more than I wanted to admit. The first night passed slowly but uneventfully. I patrolled the perimeter, flashlight cutting through the cold mist curling off the mountainside. My phone had no signal. My GPS flickered and died, leaving me with only the paper rules and the echo of my own footsteps. I made a cup of instant coffee, sat in my car, and tried to imagine it was just another boring night like any other security job. But the night never is. Not here. It started around 1:17 a.m., the exact time I know because I checked my watch obsessively afterward. The power in the temporary lighting rig flickered, once, twice, and then went out completely. Absolute darkness. My flashlight beam darted across the concrete and steel, searching for something, anything, that could explain it. That's when I heard it. A soft, deliberate tap. Tap, tap, I froze. The sound came from inside the tunnel. My rational mind screamed, "It's just an echo. It's just the wind. It's nothing." But then it came again, slower this time. And I heard it. My name, Evan. I swear to God, my stomach dropped to my knees. No one else was supposed to be here. The construction workers had all left. The supervisors had vanished after leaving the rules. There was no one. The echo repeated it, just the same, just my name. And I realized I could feel it in my chest. A weight, like the tunnel itself was trying to pull me in. I wanted to run, but my car was 10 meters away, and something in me, kept me rooted. Maybe it was stubbornness, maybe fear, maybe guilt. I think it's guilt. There are things I don't tell anyone, things I'm running from, every time I think I'm safe. But that night, whatever I was running from wasn't outside me, it was waiting in the tunnel. I tried to convince myself it was a trick of the acoustics, a reflection of my own voice bouncing off the walls, but every rational thought collided with a primal certainty. I was not alone. The sound of footsteps followed my own, slow, measured, deliberate, and yet I hadn't moved. I swallowed hard, trying not to breathe too loudly. Maybe I should have left. Maybe I should have called the company, but I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I scribbled the rules into my notebook, hands shaking, trying to distract myself. Do not approach the red light after 3:33 a.m. What red light? The floodlights? My flashlight? My brain wouldn't answer. It only insisted on turning over every detail, replaying the sound of my name, echoing, mocking, reminding me that I was alone, yet not alone. I stayed at the tunnel entrance until the lights flickered back on. When they did, the hallway of concrete beyond the gate was empty. No figure, no Harper, no previous guard, just dust, steel, and darkness. But the echo of my name lingered. I drove home that morning, or maybe I didn't. It's hard to remember when exactly the night ended. The rules I held in my hand were the only certainty. 12 bizarre, meaningless, terrifying rules, and a warning I can't fully explain. Whatever walks in the tunnel listens, waits, and sometimes answers back. I know it sounds like paranoia. I'm probably insane, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. The site isn't just a construction zone. It's something else. Something patient. Something that doesn't like being ignored. And I didn't ignore it. I never ignore it. I came back the next night. I had to. Money isn't given, it's taken. And so begins the second shift. The one where I finally met Harper. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe that's already another story. One that I can't fully trust myself to tell. I told myself I wouldn't go back. I really did. But I had bills to pay. And an instinct I can't explain kept dragging me back up that winding mountain road. Maybe part of me wanted to prove I wasn't crazy. Or maybe I was already past that point. I arrived at the site just as dusk swallowed the valley. The same skeletal tunnel yawning like it had been waiting for me. The clipboard was gone. The rules weren't on the table anymore. Just the cold, silent machinery. I checked my watch. 7:45 p.m. Exactly the same time I'd arrived last night. Or was it the night before? Time stretches here. I brushed it off and started my patrol, half convinced the noises I'd heard were nothing more than my imagination. I let the flashlight sweep across the concrete walls and steel beams. Every shadow looked like a person. Every creak sounded like a footstep. And then I saw her. She was leaning casually against the wall near the tunnel entrance. ID badge clipped to her chest. Hair tucked into a messy bun. A woman, tall, confident. Her eyes glinted in the beam of my flashlight. "Evening," she said, voice smooth, like she had been expecting me. "You're Evan, right?" I froze. My mind raced. Yeah. Who are you?" "Harper," she said. "Night supervisor." She smiled faintly, but there was something in her look that made my stomach knot. "And you've almost broken rule number 6. I blinked. "Rule 6? "Yes," she said. "You were about to acknowledge the shadow behind the generator." "I've been watching," I laughed nervously. "Shadows? Watching? What the hell kind of job was this?" But Harper didn't laugh. She just tilted her head, a quiet warning in her expression. "The tunnel listens," she said, and then she started walking toward the mouth of it, her boots echoing softly on the concrete. My heart picked up speed. I should have stopped her, shouldn't I? But I just stood there, frozen, flashlight trembling in my hand. We patrolled together, though she made it clear I wasn't in charge. Every step she took felt deliberate, testing me, observing how I reacted. She knew all the rules, every single one, not just the 12 I'd seen. Rules she recited as though memorized by heart. Do not respond to voices that aren't yours. Do not step on the cracks between beams. If the red light flickers, do not follow it. Do not look at the reflections twice. I took notes, nervously jotting down everything she said. Or maybe I was writing things she didn't actually say. That's the thing about Harper. I could never be sure if she was real. I'd glance away for a second, and when I looked back, she was closer, standing silently, waiting for me to break another rule. By 3 a.m., my nerves were frayed. Every sound seemed amplified. The whine of the machinery, the drip of condensation, the metallic groan of the tunnel walls. I kept glancing at my watch, dreading 3:33. The red lights inside the tunnel began to flicker. I froze. "Remember," Harper whispered, leaning close so that her breath brushed my ear. "The tunnel listens. It always listens." Her words made my chest tighten. I wanted to argue, to say I was just here for the job, that none of this mattered, but I couldn't. Something in her presence, calm, unnerving, made me obey instinctively. Then it happened. She stepped into the tunnel, one foot then another. I called her name. "Harper, wait!" No response. I swallowed hard, edging toward the tunnel entrance, trying to see if she had turned a corner. Nothing. Silence. Not even an echo. My flashlight beam swung over empty concrete, steel, and dust. I told myself she went back to the site. She must have. There's no way anyone could just vanish, right? By sunrise, I went down to the local office to check the employment records. No Harper. No supervisor by that name had ever worked there. Nothing. The site manager stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "Harper? Who's Harper?" I left without another word, but the image of her lingered. Did she exist? Was she testing me, like she said? Or was I imagining her? A trick of exhaustion, paranoia, and too much fear from the first night. Maybe she was a warning. Maybe she was the tunnel itself. All I knew was this: nothing would feel normal again. Every shadow, every flicker of light, every echoed footstep reminded me that the tunnel was alive. Or at least, that's how it felt in my chest. And I would return. I had no choice. My next shift was coming. because I can't not go back. I don't even know how to start this. Maybe I shouldn't even call it a start, because time at the site doesn't work like normal. My watch lies to me. My phone lies to me. I think I went to the site 3 nights ago, or was it last week? I remember driving up the mountain, the mist curling over the road like ghost fingers. But after that, everything gets blurry. When I arrived, the tunnel was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that presses against your eardrums until you can hear your own heartbeat in triple time. I told myself I was imagining Harper last shift, that it was just my nerves, nothing more. But then, I found it. My phone, left on the seat of the patrol car. Video files, hundreds of them, time-stamped across the nights I don't remember. And in every single one, I saw myself, talking, laughing, obeying rules I didn't remember reading, except there was something off. My voice, it didn't always match my lips. Sometimes the words twisted, slowed, even whispered things I didn't intend to say. I played one clip back, hands trembling. I swore I heard Harper's voice, or someone, something correcting me. Do not answer, do not answer, do not answer. And then my name, soft but urgent. Evan. I yanked the phone away, almost throwing it across the car hood. But curiosity, or fear, maybe both, kept me watching. The footage showed me walking the tunnel alone, or alone as far as the camera could tell. I looked at the shadows. They moved independently, shapes curled along the walls like smoke, or living things with eyes I couldn't see. At one point, my reflection in a puddle turned to face the camera while I was looking elsewhere. I began scribbling in my notebook. Rule 13. If you realize what you've done, it's already too late. I didn't remember writing it, but it was there, bold and exact. Every line felt like a warning I'd already broken. That night I patrolled like a machine, my movements rigid, eyes scanning every corner. The tunnel groaned around me, shifting, expanding. Or maybe it was just my imagination. The metallic tang of damp steel filled my mouth. Footsteps echoed behind me. Mine? Someone else's? I couldn't tell. My heartbeat roared in my ears, drowning out everything else. At exactly 3:33 a.m., I saw it. The red light flickering at the far end of the tunnel. I wanted to turn back. I should have turned back, but something inside me compelled me forward. Every instinct screamed danger, but I followed anyway. The light pulsed like a heartbeat, rhythmic and menacing. And then I heard it again. Evan. Not my voice this time. Something else. Cold. Patient. Expectant. My legs felt like lead. I froze, staring down the tunnel, my flashlight cutting through dust and darkness. I called out. No response, but the air shifted, whispering my name again, closer this time. I stumbled back, tripping over my own boots. My phone slid across the concrete, screen cracking, and the video spilled onto the screen. Footage I hadn't shot, moments I didn't remember living. There were scenes of Harper, sometimes standing in the shadows, sometimes not. Sometimes she was there at all, or was that just another reflection of my mind bending? Morning came, or what I think was morning. I drove to the local office, hoping to anchor myself to reality, but the records were gone. No Harper, no night shifts logged, no supervisor at all during the hours I claimed to work. The clerk looked at me like I was a ghost, repeating herself. Sir, you've never been scheduled for those nights. I left, feeling my mind cracking at the seams. Every streetlight seemed to flicker in time with my heartbeat. Every shadow on the road reached for me. And yet, the truth, the reality I desperately wanted, was just out of reach. The tunnel had stolen hours from me. Or maybe I'd surrendered them willingly. I tried to sleep. I think I slept. But the dreams were different this time. They weren't dreams. They were recordings of myself, moving through the tunnel, whispering to someone or something that I didn't recognize. Faces blurred. Shadows shifted. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my own reflection, smiling at me, like it knew secrets I didn't. I don't know how much time I've lost. Days, weeks, the distinction has blurred. But one thing is clear. The tunnel doesn't forget. It listens, and it punishes. Each missing hour, each flicker of the red light, each whisper of my name, it's part of something I can't escape. I'm writing this now, before the next shift. I feel it already, under my skin, crawling, waiting for me to step back into the mouth of the tunnel. The echoes I hear aren't just my imagination anymore. They are warnings, or instructions, or maybe both. I keep thinking about Harper. Did she exist? Did she warn me? Or was she another fragment of the tunnel's cruelty? A projection designed to make me obey? I don't know. And the more I doubt, the more I realize that maybe doubting was the point. The tunnel wants me uncertain, broken, isolated, dependent on rules I can barely remember. Tomorrow, or tonight, or whatever comes next, I'll go back. I have no choice. If I don't return, I know they'll come for me anyway. The missing hours aren't over. The red light isn't done blinking. And my name still echoes, because I can't not go back. I shouldn't be here. I know that. I tell myself that every time I climb that winding mountain road toward the tunnel, every time the mist curls like fingers around my headlights. But I can't stop. I never can. The rules, they demand it. Or maybe I do. Maybe it's me that's broken, not them. The site was empty, almost sterile. Dust hung in the floodlights like smoke frozen in midair. My boots crunched against the gravel, and the wind whispered through the skeletal framework. Everything felt wrong, yet familiar, like a memory I couldn't fully access. My phone was dead. My watch ticked erratically, skipping minutes, repeating seconds, mocking me. I checked the clipboard. The rules had changed. 12 were still there, handwritten in the same neat scrawl, but a 13th had appeared. Rule 13. If you realize what you've done, it's already too late. I stared at it, stomach twisting. I didn't remember writing it. I don't remember even thinking about it. But it was there, bold, heavy, undeniable. The tunnel loomed ahead, mouth gaping like a black wound. The red light flickered inside, uneven, like a heartbeat skipping beats. I took a deep breath, flashlight in hand, and stepped forward. Every instinct screamed to run, but my legs obeyed anyway. I think that's what the rules want. Obedience. Fear doesn't matter. Doubt doesn't matter. Only compliance. Evan, the whisper came from inside the tunnel. Not from a shadow, not from the walls, from inside my own head. My pulse spiked. I turned. Nothing. Only darkness and steel and the faint hum of machinery buried underground. I tried calling out. My voice came out weak, tremulous, and warped. The echo returned, but not as I expected. It didn't repeat my words. It spoke with my voice, saying things I hadn't said, confessing truths I hadn't dared acknowledge. I failed. I couldn't stop it. It's my fault. I stumbled back, nearly falling over a puddle that wasn't there the night before. My reflection in it smiled at me. My reflection, not me. And then I realized every shadow, every whisper, every rule I thought I understood. They weren't just instructions. They were judgments, warnings, or maybe accusations. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. The red light pulsed faster. 3:33. Exactly. Harper, or someone who might have been her, appeared at the edge of the light, perfectly still, arms folded, expression unreadable. "You're late," she said. Or maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was just another fragment of the tunnel playing tricks. But her voice was icy, certain, like the rules themselves had taken human form. I'm following them, I stammered. My notebook fell open at my feet. Pages scattered in the windless air. The rules stared at me. 12, then 13. Each one a trap. Each one a chain I had willingly wrapped around my own wrists. You know what comes next, Harper, or the tunnel said. You broke them all. I tried to run, but the tunnel shifted. The walls seemed closer, pressing in. The air grew metallic, thick, suffocating. My flashlight flickered and died, and then I heard it. The footsteps, hundreds of them, pacing in rhythm with the pulsing red light. They weren't mine, they couldn't be, and yet they followed me, circling me, echoing my own movements back at me. I fell, I hit the floor. I thought I saw the exit far above, a pinprick of daylight, but it receded the moment I lunged. The tunnel had changed, or maybe I had. I couldn't tell anymore. I whispered the rules aloud, hoping for safety. Do not respond. Do not follow the red light. Do not acknowledge the shadows. The red light stopped flickering. The echoes stopped. The air stilled. Silence. A silence so deep it pressed against my skull. I thought I could breathe again, thought I could move, but then a voice, soft, cruel, unmistakably mine, whispered from everywhere and nowhere. Welcome to your first shift. And the flashlight came back on, pointing straight at me, though I wasn't holding it. The walls were covered in scribbles, rules I hadn't seen, commands I hadn't heard, warnings I didn't remember writing. The tunnel was alive, or I was dead, or both. I don't know if I can leave. I tried, I swear I tried, but the mountain road twists endlessly. The mist curls endlessly, and my watch ticks endlessly. My name still echoes, the red light still flickers. And the rules never end. I record this now as a warning, if anyone ever finds it. Maybe it's a recording of someone else. Maybe it's just another trick the tunnel plays. But if you hear my voice, if you hear these words, know this: do not go looking for Harper. Do not step into the tunnel. Do not try to understand the rules. Because if you do, you will understand too late. And then, like me, you'll realize the 13th rule. If you realize what you've done, it's already too late. Story number 3. I broke the rules once, just once. And by sunrise, there were 3 bodies at the base of the tower. None of them were supposed to be real. The thing is, I don't remember calling for help. I don't even remember who was with me that night. I broke the rules once, just once. And if you ever take a job like mine, up here in the fire towers, you'll understand why that mistake still keeps me awake. You think solitude is peaceful. You think silence means safety. Try listening to your own heartbeat, echo through a radio that shouldn't even be turned on. My name's Eli Mercer, and I'm a fire lookout stationed deep in the mountains of British Columbia. Tower 9, to be exact. The government pays me to sit in a steel box for weeks at a time and make sure the world doesn't burn. The job sounds simple. Watch the horizon, log the wind patterns, report smoke. But no one tells you about the other rules, the ones they only whisper when you're too far from civilization to turn back. The official list of tower safety protocols is pinned above my desk. Standard bureaucratic nonsense. Check generator twice daily. Keep the beacon running at night. Report all sightings immediately. But tucked behind that laminated sheet is a handwritten note, yellowed and stained by rain. It's older than the tower itself. It says, never leave the light off after sunset. Don't look directly into the tree line after dark. Never answer the radio after midnight. I laughed when I read it. Superstition, I thought. Just another scare tactic to keep rookies obedient. But that was before the nights got long, too long, and the trees started whispering back when the wind died. See, Tower 9 is isolated in a way most people can't imagine. The next outpost is 40 kilometers east, and my only company is the hum of the generator, the static of the radio, and the endless forest breathing beneath me. Sometimes I think the whole mountain exhales, fog drifting between the trees like smoke that never quite clears. I started this season like everyone else, eager, confident, maybe a little arrogant. They say the mountain humbles you, but I didn't believe it. I thought I could handle solitude. I thought I was stronger than the ones who'd gone missing. They told me about Clara on my first day. The last lookout before me. She went off grid, said my supervisor, Hale, his voice flat over the transmitter. Didn't call in, didn't pack out, might have hiked out early. Don't dwell on it. But he said it too quickly, like he'd rehearsed it. That first week passed quietly. I kept the beacon light burning through the fog, took hourly readings, made voice logs that I pretended someone would actually listen to. The rules were just background noise. Until the 6th night, it started with a storm, the kind that crawls down the mountainside, low and mean, until the thunder feels like it's under your skin. I shut every window, locked the hatch, and sat in the dark, watching lightning lick across the sky. The radio crackled in the corner. White noise. Nothing unusual. I was halfway through a cup of stale coffee when I heard it. Eli. My name. Clear as day. I froze. Thought I'd imagined it. Then came the static again. Drawn out and uneven. Like someone breathing too close to the mic. I reached for the dial, half annoyed, half curious. Maybe it was Hale checking in from the base station. But then came another whisper. So faint I almost missed it. Don't. Look down. I yanked the power cord out of the socket. Silence. Just the rain hitting the roof. My hands were shaking and I told myself it was the caffeine. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was interference. Lightning hitting the transmission lines. Maybe a distorted echo. But when I checked the log, something caught my eye. The radio clock had frozen at 12:07 a.m., exactly the time I'd heard the voice. That was the first time I noticed the writing on the inside of the tower door, carved with a knife, uneven and frantic. 3 words, "Don't answer back." I spent the next few days pretending everything was fine. I kept my voice cheerful in the daily check-ins. No smoke, all clear, Tower 9 reporting. But even as I said it, I could feel that voice in the static, waiting. I started leaving the radio unplugged at night. Then, on the 9th evening, I heard footsteps on the stairs. The metal rungs creaked, slow, deliberate. I grabbed my flashlight, aimed it through the hatch and shouted into the storm. "Who's there?" No answer, just the wind. I waited, listened. Another creak, closer this time. I should have called it in, but the generator was sputtering and the radio was still unplugged. The rules said never to answer after midnight, but it didn't say anything about calling before. I plugged it back in. Static burst through the speakers. Then Eli, the same voice, soft, almost kind. "You left the light off." I swear the temperature dropped 10 degrees. My flashlight flickered and died. I tried to reply, "Who is this?" But the words caught in my throat. The line hissed like boiling water, and beneath it I heard something else. A second voice buried deep. A woman's, laughing, low, familiar. I stumbled back from the desk, the chair clattering to the floor. My hands hit the notebook open on the table, Clara's old logbook. I didn't remember taking it out, but the last entry was smeared across the page in blurred ink. "He's not supposed to be here." Lightning flashed again, and for a moment I saw my reflection in the dark window. Except it wasn't just mine. There was another face beside it, pale and blurred by the rain, staring up from the forest below. I don't know how long I stood there. But when the storm finally eased, the radio came alive one last time. No static, no interference, just my own voice, calm and steady, whispering from the speaker. Don't look down. And this time, I listened. When you hear your own voice whispering back through static, you start questioning what's real. But when it whispers someone else's name, someone who's supposed to be dead, that's when you stop questioning and start listening. After that storm, I couldn't shake the echo of it. My voice saying, "Don't look down." I told myself it was a feedback glitch, maybe an old recording bleeding through the line. But the thing about lies is, the longer you repeat them, the less you believe yourself. So I did the one thing I shouldn't have. I opened Clara's logbook again. It was still damp from the rain that had crept through the window. The ink had run in places, smudging her neat handwriting into frantic scratches. Most entries were dull, weather reports, smoke readings, coordinates. But toward the end, the tone changed. Sentences broken, letters carved into the paper like she'd been writing through, tears, voices that don't belong to anyone, living. The signal follows me even when I unplug. They know my name. I read that last line a dozen times. Then I flipped the page, and there it was. My own name written in the margin, underlined twice. Eli Mercedot, I told you before that I never met Clara. That's the official truth. I started my assignment 2 months after she vanished, but the truth never stays clean for long. The truth warps in solitude. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I remember her voice. Soft, calm, carrying that faint northern accent you only hear from locals who grew up near the timberline. Sometimes I think I can still hear her laugh through the static. I know how that sounds, but you've never been up here. You've never gone 6 nights without sleep, without another heartbeat near yours. You start inventing company. You start filling the silence with ghosts. The generator's been sputtering lately. The light in the tower flickers, and every time it does, the shadows stretch longer than they should. I've stopped keeping track of time. Hale's check-ins come less often now, sometimes days apart, or maybe I just don't answer anymore. Last night, I found muddy boot prints on the stairs, small ones. They led up from the forest, and they stopped right beneath the hatch to my floor. I didn't open it. I sat there for an hour just listening. Wind, rain, nothing else. Eventually, I told myself it was runoff from the storm. Maybe the wind pushed leaves against the rungs, but deep down I knew someone or something had been climbing toward me. When dawn came, I turned on the radio. Against every rule. Against my rule, I just needed to hear a voice. Any voice. Static. Then, crack. A short burst of sound like breathing. Eli? I froze. It wasn't Hale. It wasn't feedback. It was her. I know it was. She said my name again, softer this time, like a test, like she wasn't sure if I'd answer. I wanted to say something back, but my throat locked. The mic felt heavy in my hand. I just sat there, listening to the faint hiss between syllables. Then she said something that made my skin crawl. You left the light off again. I swear I hadn't. I turned to check the window, and sure enough, the beacon lamp outside the tower was dark. I'd checked it at dusk. It shouldn't have been out. The switch still pointed to on. When I looked back at the logbook, the pages had turned on their own. A new line had appeared near the bottom, ink still glistening wet. He's listening. I don't remember writing it, but the handwriting looked a lot like mine. That's when the contradiction started. I caught myself saying things that didn't line up, telling myself I'd never heard Clara's voice, then describing exactly how it sounded, swearing I'd never seen her, then remembering the way her hair moved in the wind the day she climbed the tower. Wait. No. That's not right. She disappeared before I came here, didn't she? I tried calling Hale that night. The transmission wouldn't go through. Just static. Thick, choking static that buzzed like insects in my ears. Then buried beneath it, you shouldn't have answered. That's when I noticed the smell, wet soil, pine sap, the scent of earth carried up the tower by the wind. Except it wasn't windy, and it wasn't coming from outside. The smell was inside the cabin. I turned slowly, flashlight shaking in my hand. Mud, a trail of it, smeared across the floorboards, leading from the hatch to the corner where the radio sat. The mic was off the hook. I didn't touch it. At least I don't remember touching it, but when I reached for it, the speaker crackled again. Eli, it was barely a whisper now, like the signal was dying. You replaced me. Every hair on my neck stood up. I didn't, I whispered back, before I even realized I'd said it out loud. The radio hissed like it was laughing. That laugh, it wasn't human, but it was familiar. I swear it was the same sound I'd heard in the storm. And then, the worst part. My voice, my real voice, came through the speaker again, layered beneath hers. It said something I couldn't deny. You took her post. The light flickered once, twice, then went out completely. The tower plunged into darkness. I don't remember much after that. Just the sound of the stairs groaning, one step at a time, upward, slow, steady. I locked the hatch, pressed my back to the wall, and waited for dawn. When it finally came, I looked out through the rain-smeared window. The forest below was still untouched. No footprints, no sign of life. But hanging from the railing outside the tower was a headset. Old, rusted, the kind the lookouts used before digital radios. I hadn't seen it before. A tag dangled from the cord, faded ink, one word, Clara. And when I picked it up, the headset whispered, just once, you replaced me. I always thought fire was something you could see coming. A distant orange glow, smoke curling over treetops, warning you to run. I was wrong. Sometimes fire isn't below. Sometimes it's in your head. And sometimes it's in the forest below the forest, where nothing should be alive. The days after Clara's headset appeared were strange. The generator sputtered at night even when I was sure I'd fueled it. The beacon sometimes blinked off for no reason. And when I looked down from the tower, I could swear the trees weren't still. They shifted, almost imperceptibly, like something or someone was moving inside them. I hadn't slept in 3 days, maybe 4. Meals were cold, half-eaten. My voice logs became fragmented. 1 minute, I was narrating weather conditions. The next, I was confessing things I hadn't told anyone. Or maybe things I hadn't realized myself. I was losing control. But I wasn't crazy. Not yet. At least that's what I kept telling myself. And then the fire came. I first noticed it in the valley below. A faint orange glow, flickering between the dark silhouettes of pine and fir. My first thought was smoke. My second was relief. Finally, I whispered to the empty tower. Finally, a fire I can see. But it wasn't smoke. It was alive. The flames moved unnaturally, almost intelligent, not rolling across the trees, crawling, reaching, licking upward in patterns that didn't make sense. I grabbed the binoculars, my hands shaking, and then I saw them, 3 shapes moving in the fire. Human shapes. I squinted. One wore a ranger uniform, Clara's. Maybe mine, another in scorched clothes, unrecognizable. And the third, it looked like me. I swore it was me. I blinked. They were gone. The logs say there was no fire that night. No report, no heat signature, nothing. But my eyes didn't lie. And my mind. I'm not sure. I tried to call Hale, radio dead, generator sputtering. And through the static, I thought I heard her voice again. You weren't supposed to see this. I froze, thought about leaving the tower, running down into the forest to get a closer look. But the stairs creaked beneath me, and I stopped. Something had been moving on them. Last night's muddy boot prints, or ghosts of them. Isolation changes you. It forces memory to fracture. I remember my first week here thinking I could handle it. That confidence cracked like glass. I started recording everything, obsessively. But the more I recorded, the more the recording seemed to change. Clara's last entries. Her handwriting morphed under my eyes. Lines I thought I recognized shifted. Letters stretching and twisting. Messages I didn't write appeared. My name again underlined. You took my place. I didn't want to admit it, but I'd been lying to myself. I wasn't just here to watch for fires. I was here because Clara, she had vanished, and something about that disappearance haunted me, or maybe I haunted myself. Then came the hallucinations, or maybe they were more than hallucinations. I saw movement in the glass of the tower window, a hand pressed against the outside, pale dripping water, or blood. A face, blurred by rain, staring up at me. I called out, but my voice sounded wrong, echoed back at me in someone else's timbre. I turned to the logbook, a page I hadn't seen before. Handwriting not mine, not Clara's. He listens. He takes. He replaces. I know what you're thinking. Ghosts, supernatural nonsense. Maybe you're right, but if that were all it was, why did I feel my own memories being pulled from me? Last night I climbed to the observation deck during a storm. Lightning flickered across the valley, and for a moment, just a heartbeat, I could see all three again. The fire shapes, swaying, motionless, frozen mid-scream. And the third one, my reflection, or what I wanted to believe was my reflection. I thought I was alone up there, the tower empty, but a shadow moved behind me. I spun. Nothing, I muttered to myself, trying to ground myself. Eli, it's just a dream. You're safe. But the radio burst to life. No static, just Hale's voice. Distorted, urgent. There's no tower there anymore. I screamed, my mouth dry, my ears ringing. The beacon lamp went out. In the darkness I could hear whispers. Clara? Me? Both? And that's when I realized something I couldn't ignore. I hadn't replaced her. I hadn't replaced anyone. I had become someone else. Someone I didn't know. Someone who did things I can't remember doing. I stumbled back from the hatch. My flashlight flickered. I didn't want to see what was below me, but I did. The valley was calm, eerily still, except for a faint orange glow flickering in the distance. Not fire. Not quite. Then the voice came again, crystal clear through the speaker. You took her post. You followed her path. You're the next one. I wanted to unplug everything, smash the radio, run down into the forest, anything, but my legs wouldn't move. My hands, they trembled. I was frozen, and then I understood. The fire isn't below, it's everywhere. In the trees, in the tower, in me. It's the consequence of breaking the rules, and I broke every single one. I don't remember exactly when it started or when the shapes became real, but I know this. The three figures, the ranger, the scorched one, the third that looked like me, were waiting, watching, and they weren't going to let me leave the tower, not without answering for what I did. Because when you take someone else's place, when you answer the midnight call, when you leave the light off, you learn something. The forest doesn't forgive, the tower doesn't forgive, and the fire below isn't just fire, it's judgment, and I think I just heard it laughing. Sunrise should bring relief, a new day, fresh light, clarity. But up here, on Tower 9, sunrise isn't light. Sunrise is revelation, and sometimes it's the last thing you'll ever see. I don't know how long I sat there after the fire shapes disappeared. Hours, days. The forest below looked calm, innocent even, but I couldn't trust my eyes. The trees shifted as if they were breathing. My shadow moved on its own. My own reflection in the cracked window no longer matched me. I tried to record my confession. I pointed the camera toward my face, but the image kept flickering, showing someone else. Someone pale, eyes too wide, a grin I don't recognize. I erased it. I erased it over and over. But the grin stayed. And then, as if the mountain itself had exhaled, the fog lifted just enough to reveal the valley. That's when I saw them again. The three figures. They weren't moving, not in the normal sense. They were frozen, suspended over the ground, faces turned upward, mouths open as if mid-scream. And the third one, my third self, the reflection, I can't tell you how much of this is real. I can't even tell you how much I am real anymore. I want to. I want to make it make sense. But the truth, if you can call it that, is broken. I remember calling out to them. My voice sounded wrong, echoed back like someone else was speaking through me. Stop, please. I didn't... No answer. Just the wind. Just the faint, distorted laughter of someone I used to know. Clara. Or maybe me. I can't remember when the storm started again. Lightning licked across the valley. The beacon flickered, sputtered, then went out completely. Darkness swallowed the tower. That's when the voice came. You broke every rule. It wasn't on the radio. Not exactly. It came from everywhere. From the walls. From the floorboards. From the swirling fog outside. It was Clara, it was me. It was the forest. I fell to my knees, clutching the hatch, trying to make sense. And then... the memory hit. I didn't just answer the radio once. I answered it every night. Every night I tried to silence the static. I spoke to her. Not Clara, something else wearing her voice. Footsteps on the stairs, slow, deliberate. And each time I didn't look more. I couldn't. Wrong. I knew what I'd see. And then came the knock at the door. 3 knocks. Heavy. Hollow. Perfectly measured. I whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. Just the sound of my own voice bouncing back at me. I stumbled backward, falling against the desk. The logbook flipped open. The pages turned violently, stopping on the last entry. The rule isn't to keep the monsters out. It's to keep us from remembering we are them. I froze. Every word made sense, and none of it did at all. My heart raced. My hands shook. My reflection in the glass grinned at me. Not me. Someone else. Then the shapes moved. Slowly, like marionettes, down from the sky. The first 2 merged with the fire below. One in a ranger's uniform, the other scorched and twisted. But the third floated toward me. My floating reflection. My doppelganger. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But my legs refused. My voice refused. The headset Clara had left, dangling outside, buzzed to life. I reached for it, shaking. You took her post. You followed her path. You're the next one. I dropped it. The words echoed through the tower, through the fog, through my head. I realized then that I had already become the replacement. I wasn't climbing to the tower. I wasn't standing on the stairs. I had always been the post. The sunrise came, orange and cruel. Light cut through the mist, illuminating the tower walls, the forest, and the valley below. And there they were, 3 bodies, one in a ranger's uniform, one scorched, frozen in mid-scream, and one, I couldn't look directly at it, but it was me, or what I might have been. I don't know if they were dead, or alive, or memories, or hallucinations. I don't know if I am alive. Hale's voice came over the static again, distorted, panicked. Eli! The fire, Tower 9. We can't... Static swallowed him. I didn't respond. Couldn't. And then the radio hissed, one final time. The rule isn't the tower. The rule is you. Remember who you are. Or don't. It doesn't matter anymore. I pressed my face against the glass. My reflection stared back. But it wasn't me. Not entirely. The wind carried laughter. Clara's. Mine? Both? Neither. I tried to write it down. Tried to leave proof for whoever comes next. But my hands won't follow instructions. My pen moves on its own. Words twist into shapes. Shapes twist into warnings. I don't know how long I've been here. I don't know if I'm speaking to you or speaking to myself. The sun climbed higher. The forest looked normal. The valley quiet. Nothing moved. And yet, I could feel eyes on me. I leaned out the hatch. Nothing. Only fog curling over the trees. I whisper this because I must. Because if you ever find yourself in a fire tower, deep in the mountains, remember, breaking the rules doesn't just get you hurt. It doesn't just get you scared. Breaking the rules changes you. And when the sun rises, you may not remember who you were. I closed my eyes, and for a second, I almost believed I was just a man, watching the forest, but the voice came again. You replaced me, and this time, I couldn't deny it. Story number 4. They told me the shipyard was abandoned, but every night I'd hear the cranes move on their own, and the ocean whisper my name. The weird part, I didn't tell anyone my name. They told me the shipyard was abandoned, but when I got there, the cranes were already moving. At least that's what I thought I saw. I'd blink, and they'd be still again. Towering shapes frozen against a bruised, fog-smeared sky. The kind of fog that tasted like rust when you breathed it in. I remember thinking the place looked like a skeleton, all ribs and hollow lungs. Broken hulls, twisted rails, corroded bolts clinging to nothing. Quiet. Too quiet. That's what I wanted. Quiet. Somewhere the past couldn't follow. The company, if you can call it that, found me online. A vague listing, overnight maintenance, remote shipyard. Good pay, no supervision, no interviews, no background checks. Just a message telling me where to go, and that payment would be handled weekly. It sounded like a scam, honestly, but I was desperate. I'd lost my job 2 months earlier after... Well, I don't want to get into that. Let's just say I needed to disappear for a while. When I arrived, the gate was unlocked, chain rusted through. There was no one to greet me, no trucks, no footprints in the mud. Just a tiny prefab office with one flickering light bulb and a note on the desk. Welcome, Elias. Keep the generators running. Do not stay past midnight. At first, I laughed. I thought it was a prank. Who even writes notes like that anymore? But when you're standing in the middle of a dead shipyard with fog swallowing the horizon, jokes don't land the same. The first night passed quietly enough. The generators groaned, the sea lapped against the docks, and the metal cranes creaked in the wind. I told myself the noises were just the ocean breathing, but sometime after 2 a.m. I heard something else. A voice, not clear, not even loud, just there, like someone humming underwater. It came between the generator's rhythm, like a whisper threaded through machinery. I remember freezing, holding my breath, thinking maybe I was just tired. But then it said my name. Elias. Soft. Close. I spun around so fast my flashlight slipped from my hand and cracked against the ground. The beam rolled across the concrete, catching nothing but empty docks and the faint shimmer of water. My heart was pounding, but the air stayed perfectly still. I didn't sleep much after that. The next morning, I told myself I'd imagined it. Sleep deprivation, isolation, maybe even some generator feedback. That's what I said. But when I replayed the sound in my mind, it didn't feel mechanical. It felt human, like someone calling to me from beneath the waves. Still, I kept working. I'm not proud of it, but I needed the money. Every night I checked the generators, tightened bolts, marked readings. Routine kept me sane. Routine makes you forget. Except I couldn't forget, because every night around the same hour I'd hear it again. Always faint, always from the direction of the water. Sometimes just my name, sometimes something else, something that almost sounded like a question. And sometimes I answered. I didn't mean to. It just slipped out. A whisper, a what? Or who's there? But once you start responding to things you can't see, it changes you. It opens something. I told myself I wasn't scared, but that wasn't true. Fear isn't always screaming and running. Sometimes it's quieter, like holding your breath for too long because you don't trust what you'll inhale next. A few nights in, I thought I saw movement near Dock 4. A silhouette, maybe. A person walking along the edge. But when I blinked, it was gone. I convinced myself it was a trick of the fog, or maybe my own shadow warped by the floodlights. Except the lights weren't on that night. I didn't tell anyone, mostly because there was no one to tell. No supervisor, no co-workers, no emergency number. Just me and the water. And maybe that's how I liked it. You see, solitude can make you feel safe when you're trying to forget something, when you don't want questions asked. But silence, true silence, starts to feel like it's listening. I'd lie in the office some nights, unable to sleep, the walls vibrating from the distant clang of waves against metal. Sometimes I'd swear I heard footsteps on the catwalks above me, heavy, slow, deliberate. Once I even shouted for whoever it was to stop messing around. But when I climbed up there, flashlight trembling in my hand, there was nothing, just an old seagull skeleton tangled in fishing wire. That's the part that makes me doubt my own story, because now, looking back, I can't tell which things happened and which things I made up to explain the sounds. Did I really see that silhouette by the dock? Did I really hear someone whisper my name? Or did I just want to? It's strange how the mind works when it's alone. Sometimes I think the shipyard was empty. Other times I remember lights moving in the distance, pale, yellow, and slow, like lanterns floating across the water. Maybe there were other workers there, and I just never met them. Or maybe I saw something else entirely. That's the problem with memory. It shifts, it corrodes, like metal left too long in salt air. Still, I stayed. Every night, even when the fog got thicker, even when the sea started to sound more like breathing than water, because I'd made a promise to finish the job. And maybe, deep down, because I thought I deserved to be there. I didn't know it then, but the shipyard wasn't abandoned. Something was waiting, and it had already learned my name. You ever try to convince yourself something didn't happen until it starts happening again? That's what the second week at the shipyard felt like. Every night, a little more wrong. The air got heavier, the fog thicker, and the whispers clearer. I'd tell myself I was hearing the wind through the cranes, but deep down, I knew wind doesn't say your name, and definitely not in a voice that sounds young. It started small. Footprints. The first time I almost missed them. Bare feet pressed into the thin film of salt water along the dock. Small prints. Too small for a man. Too delicate for any of the workers who should have been there. I crouched down, ran my hand over them, and they filled with water instantly, like the ocean was trying to swallow the evidence. I told myself it was a prank. Someone had to be screwing with me. But the deeper I went into the shipyard, the quieter everything got. No birds, no creaking metal. Even the generators felt muffled, like the whole world was holding its breath. Then, one night, I saw her. It was just past midnight. The fog was moving like smoke, and the docks looked like they were floating on clouds. I was doing my rounds when I noticed a shape standing in the dry dock. Tall shadows stretching from the floodlight behind me. She stood ankle deep in stagnant water, her hair plastered to her face, her arms hanging limp at her sides. I froze. She didn't move, didn't speak. "Hey!" I shouted, forcing my voice to sound braver than I felt. "You're not supposed to be here!" Nothing. I took one step forward, the sound echoing across the dock. The figure tilted her head slightly, just enough for the light to catch her face. Eyes wide open, mouth slack, skin pale as sand. And then she was gone. No splash, no footsteps, just empty water. I told myself I imagined it. I had to. Maybe it was fog refracting light. Maybe my brain misfired. But when I climbed down into the dock, I found something floating in the water. An old torn ribbon. Sea green, frayed at the ends. I kept it. I don't know why. Maybe I thought I'd prove she was real. Maybe I already knew she was. The next day, I searched the office, looking for anything. Records, logs, something to tell me who might have been here before. There was one ledger tucked behind a file cabinet, its pages swollen with damp. I flipped through it, dates fading to nothing. Names blurred until one line stood out. Marin Lawn, dockhand, missing, July 1994. The ink bled where someone had underlined missing. I don't remember breathing for a full minute after that. The air just left. I kept telling myself it was coincidence. Maybe someone else wandered through here. Maybe those prints weren't hers. Maybe I didn't actually see her at all. I even tried talking out loud while I worked to drown the whispers. It helped for a while, until the third night. That night, I heard crying. Soft, broken sobs coming from beneath the dock. The kind of crying you try to muffle so no one knows you're there. I grabbed my flashlight and leaned over the edge, scanning the black water. Marin, I don't even know why I said her name. It just slipped out, like my tongue already knew it. The crying stopped. Then came the bubbles, just a few at first, then dozens, breaking the surface in a circle right below me. I stumbled back, my flashlight slipping from my grip again, beams spinning across the planks. And in that split second of flickering light, I saw her face under the water, eyes open, lips blue, hair floating like seaweed. I ran. I don't remember reaching the cabin. I don't remember locking the door. I just remember the sound, the slow, deliberate knocking, 3 times, not frantic. Calm. From underneath the floorboards. I sat there until dawn, holding the ribbon in my hand, my breath fogging the window. The next morning, I told myself it couldn't have been real. I even laughed, said it out loud just to make it sound smaller. You didn't see anything, Elias. You're tired. You're hearing things again. Again. That word slipped out before I realized it. I froze because I'd told myself I left all that behind. The voices, the sounds that used to come before things went wrong. But maybe they hadn't stopped. Maybe they just moved with me. The 4th night, I found the water pump running even though I'd switched it off. A trail of wet footprints led from the dry dock to the office. I followed them with the flashlight, my chest tightening with each step. They ended at my door, bare, small and fresh, and then they vanished, not faded, not dried, gone, like whoever made them had been standing there a moment ago listening. That's when I started talking to her. Not out loud, not at first, just in my head. Questions I didn't want to ask out loud. What do you want? Why me? Sometimes the ocean answered. Sometimes it was just the wind. But one night, while I was recording the generator's hum trying to capture proof of something, the tape picked up a voice. Behind me, a whisper. You came back. It wasn't a question. I replayed it over and over until sunrise, every nerve in my body burning. And yet, even now, part of me wanted to believe it. Because when you've done something unforgivable, hearing someone, anyone, call your name feels like a kind of mercy. But the ocean doesn't forgive. It remembers, and Marin Lawn wasn't done remembering. They say isolation makes you hear things, but what if isolation just clears the noise long enough to let you finally hear what's always been there? That's how it started, the blurring. By the 3rd week, I couldn't tell when the nights ended and the mornings began. The fog swallowed the sun whole, and my clock stopped working on its own. The hands just froze at 12:03 midnight maybe, or maybe it never stopped being midnight after that. I started recording myself, audio logs like proof that I was still sane. Each night I'd sit by the generator and talk into my tape recorder. Day 12, I'd whisper, maintenance check complete. Still no sign of anyone else. I wanted a record, something to keep me tethered. But when I played the tapes back, there was always another voice. Not loud, more like an echo layered beneath mine. I'd say, all quiet tonight, and underneath, barely audible, I'd hear it breathe. Liar. I deleted the first few recordings, but after a while, I stopped trying to hide it. It was part of the shipyard now, or maybe part of me. The wet footprints came back too. Only this time, they didn't lead to my door. They started from it. I woke one morning to find the office floor glistening. water pooling beneath my boots. The door was open just slightly and the air smelled like salt and rust. When I stepped outside, I saw it. The trail leading down to the dry dock. Same small bear prints as before. But this time, they weren't fresh. They were bleeding. I followed them anyway. I had to. The fog was so thick it swallowed my flashlight's beam within inches. I walked slow, each step echoing, the sound too loud in the emptiness. I thought about calling her name again, Marin, but I didn't trust what would answer. At the dock's edge, I found the rope ladder hanging into the pit. The water below shimmered dark and still. I should have turned back. But then I heard it again. That voice from beneath the water. Only now it wasn't crying, it was laughing. That laugh followed me down the ladder. The air grew colder the lower I went. My boots splashed into knee-deep water, and the flashlight flickered. The sound of dripping metal echoed all around, rhythmic, almost like breathing. The walls of the dock were slick with algae, and somewhere deeper, water was moving. Slow, deliberate, like something alive. And then I saw them. Wet handprints along the wall. Small. Pale. Leading into the maintenance corridor that ran beneath the dock. I didn't even know it existed until then. The hatch had always been sealed shut, but now it hung open, rusted bolts torn free. I remember whispering, "How?" Then the lights cut out. For a heartbeat, there was only black water and my own pulse thundering in my ears. And then a whisper, right next to me, Elias. It wasn't coming from behind or above. It was inside the corridor under the water. My body moved before my brain did. I dropped the flashlight and waded in, water climbing to my waist, then my chest. I tried to keep breathing, but the air was thick, heavy, and wrong. Every sound seemed too close, too personal. "Who are you?" I yelled, though I already knew. No answer, just that faint, warped laughter again, bubbling up from below. I turned to climb back out, but the ladder was gone. I swear it was gone. I shone my light where it should have been and saw only wet wall and shadow. That's when panic took over. I waded deeper into the corridor, trying to find another way out, but every few feet the water grew darker, thicker, colder. And then something touched my leg. Not seaweed, not debris, fingers. I screamed and stumbled forward, the water rising to my chin. I dropped the flashlight. It sank, beam fading into the murk. And in that fading light I saw her face, just below the surface, eyes open, watching me. Marin. She didn't speak, didn't move, but behind her, in the darkness, shapes shifted. Other faces, distorted, unrecognizable, staring from beneath the ripples. I bolted. I don't remember how I made it back. Just that when I crawled out onto the dock, I was drenched, coughing, shivering, and the ladder was right there where it should have been, perfectly intact. That's when I realized the shipyard was changing me. I started hearing the whispers even when I was awake. They'd slip between my thoughts, finishing my sentences. Sometimes they sounded like Marin. Other times, they sounded like my sister. I didn't tell you about her, did I? Her name was Clara. She drowned when we were kids. At least that's what the police report said. But I still see her sometimes. Just a flash, the hem of her dress under the water. Maybe that's why I came here. Maybe I thought working by the ocean would make it easier to forget. But the ocean doesn't forget. It waits. That night, I replayed one of the recordings again, the one from the corridor. I wanted to prove to myself it wasn't real. But halfway through the playback, my own voice started. Arguing, I said, "Is anyone there?" And then, my voice answered, "You shouldn't have come back." I dropped the recorder. I didn't sleep after that. The walls of the office pulsed with the sound of waves, the ceiling dripping even though it hadn't rained in days. My reflection in the window didn't move when I did. It just stared, water pooling around its feet. That's when I decided to end the recordings. But the last one, day 19, still plays in my head. I don't remember saying the words, but I hear them every time I close my eyes. She's not the one drowning. And then, static. I don't know what it means. I don't want to, but the tide's been higher lately, creeping closer to the office door each night. The whole shipyard groans now, like it's sinking inch by inch. I keep telling myself I'll leave. Tomorrow. Just one more night to pack my things. But when I stand at the water's edge and listen, I can hear them again. The voices under the tide, and somewhere in there, I swear I hear my sister whisper back, "Stay." You ever wake up and realize the world sounds heavier, like the air's soaked with something it shouldn't be? That's how the last night began. The rain wasn't falling anymore. It was pouring upward, or at least that's how it looked through the window. Sheets of water sliding against gravity, dragging fog with them. Every surface dripped, every pipe moaned. The shipyard was drowning, and I was the only one left to watch. I don't even remember lying down the night before. One moment, I was staring at the recorder on my desk, promising myself I'd leave in the morning. The next, I was standing knee-deep in water, flashlight flickering, sirens blaring somewhere far beyond the fog. The tide had swallowed half the yard. The cranes leaned like drunk giants, their metal arms groaning as the wind shoved them. The ocean was no longer behind the docks. It was inside them. I told myself it was just a storm. But then I heard her voice again. "Elias." I turned toward the sound. She was standing on the dock, barefoot, soaked, hair plastered to her face. Marin, or what was left of her. Her eyes reflected the floodlights, hollow and endless. I wanted to run, but my legs refused. All I could do was whisper, "Why me?" She tilted her head. Then she smiled. Faint, almost kind. "You came back." The words hit like cold water. Back? I'd never been here before. At least I didn't think I had. But then the smell of salt filled my mouth. And suddenly, I wasn't in the shipyard anymore. I was on a pier. Years ago, the wood was slick, the night alive with the hum of crickets and the crash of waves. A girl's laughter, my sister's, echoed somewhere behind me. She was 14, all light and motion, spinning near the edge of the dock, saying, "Bet you can't catch me." I shouted something back, I don't remember what, and then she slipped. The splash, the scream, the silence after. I remember the flashlight falling from my hand, same as it always does. The beam spinning, catching her face for one terrible second before it vanished beneath the water. And then, me, standing there, doing nothing. Oh, that's not right. I didn't just do nothing. I took a step back. That's what I never told anyone. Not the police, not my parents, not even myself. I let her drown, because I was angry, because she was laughing when I wasn't, because part of me wanted her to stop. And when the water closed over her head, I said her name once, just once, and then walked away. The sound of the waves snapped me back. The shipyard was shaking now, the storm howling like an animal. Marin, or maybe Clara, I couldn't tell anymore, was still standing on the dock, motionless, eyes fixed on me. "You're not her," I said. "You're not Marin," she didn't answer, just stepped closer, one bare foot pressing into the rising water. That's when the floodlights blew out. Darkness, thunder, a rush of wind that felt like breath against my ear. "You remember now." The whisper came from behind me, but when I turned, the water was moving on its own. Shapes forming beneath the surface, hands reaching, pale faces breaking through for seconds before sinking again. I stumbled backward, tripping on a rope coil, my head slamming against the railing. The world spun, and in that dizzy blur, I saw them. Not ghosts, not strangers. Me, dozens of versions of myself, half submerged, watching, their mouths open but silent. Each one looked older, thinner, more eroded, like time itself had been chewing on them. "Stop!" I shouted. "Stop, I get it." But the voices didn't stop. They rose in a single roar. Waves crashing, whispering, crying, until one voice cut through the noise, clear and sharp. "You're the one who drowned, Elias." I dropped to my knees. The water reached my chest now, icy and rising fast. My lungs ached, my eyes burned. I tried to crawl toward the office, toward the light, but it was gone. Everything was gone except the sea. I remember looking up once more, trying to find the sky, but all I saw was her face hovering above the surface, calm and still, hair floating like ink. "I'm sorry," I said. "Please." She blinked slowly, almost tender. "Then come back." The water surged, dragging me under. Cold closed around my throat, my ears filled with the rush of current and static. I tried to fight, but something about it felt right, like returning to a place I'd been avoiding my whole life. When I opened my eyes underwater, I saw her clearly for the first time. Marin, Clara, both, neither. Her lips moved, but the sound came from inside my head. The ocean remembers what you bury, and then nothing. Silence. They found the shipyard 2 days later, half submerged. The storm had passed, but the place was ruined. Equipment overturned, cabins flooded. The Coast Guard report said they found my cabin empty, door open, recorder still running. The tape captured only static for the first hour. Then a voice, mine, soft, distant. She wasn't the one drowning. After that, the sound of waves, just waves, though if you listen closely, really closely, right near the end, there's a whisper, Elias.